What's up, subscribers? leftstickrightstick here with another Dreams video. We're looking at the Spring Season Scenes CCJ Community Jam, and in this video we're gonna not only look at the top 10 entries, but we're also gonna take a look at some of the selections of notable entries that didn't quite make that cut. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, don't forget to click that like button below. So first out of the top 10, we look at Sour Times by Setcharoo. This was a nice still life sculpt, although personally I didn't really feel much of the spring vibe to it. Maybe it felt too dark, as well as not enough instilling enough life kind of feel in this whole sculpt. The sculpt itself looked impressive, a nice level of detail as well as a nice rain and great lighting. It's just I didn't really feel much springness in this, because don't forget the theme is spring season scenes, and this maybe felt too winter for me. However, next we have Japanese Deep Forest by Fuki0075. Now this does actually convey a very spring-like vibe. Feels very tranquil. It looks very nice. What you kind of expect from when you think spring sort of scenery, spring seasons, lots of green and lots of flowers, etc. Obviously it's sunshine really helps. More life, I guess, because spring is, when things come to life. So that's sort of what this scene does a lot more of. There's nice detailed shrubbery. The only thing I'd say is that some of the shrubbery composition looks a little weird. Next up we have When Seeds Give Way to Bough by Supposer. This was a very, very interesting entry actually. I really liked it because of the interactivity. I like that we use the pull tabs. So it's like one of those storybooks, like those dioramas where you actually pull stuff to actually make things happen. It looked very nice. The only thing I was probably disappointed about was maybe there was only 2 tabs to pull. It seemed like, I started getting really into it. I was thinking, the tree comes up. Maybe more could be done. Maybe bring in some more animals, except for the animal just came on its own rather than pulling a tab. Or maybe have like the tree grow fruit. That would have been an extra nice addition. But this was really great in terms of being an interactive diorama. A nice, interesting take on the actual spring scenes theme. To follow that up, we have Hidden Woods Village by RakanVX. Again, I didn't really get a very springy vibe from this. It sort of conveyed too much fantasy kind of setting for me. It didn't necessarily convey that it was springtime. It was just we're in a forest village. So that's one of the detractors for me in terms of it being an entry in this jam. But otherwise, it's actually a very nice level because it's got some nice street scenery. It's got some nice characters. The villages are really cute. The nice sort of detail of this whole treetop community is really cool. And I like the interactive, there's a story kind of element where you're walking into this village and you have to find 10 other villagers. So it's pretty beautiful to walk through. It's just, I didn't feel the spring. But speaking of feeling the spring, we have Spring Day by Tyrexis. And I love this. This was very tranquil. And if you saw our sort of nature scene showcase, you would know that I love this scenery. It conveys spring very well without the usual instant thought of green. Instead, it's just got a whole flush of pink, great sunshine, lighting as well, and nice tranquil setting, music to go along with it. The ideal fantasy kind of look of what you'd experience when you go to Japan to see the cherry blossoms, but obviously they're not this pink. The next entry that we're looking at, still in the top 10, is Ghost of Tsushima Scenery number 2. Again, this really didn't feel very spring-like at all. Regardless, it was a very impressive scenery, great recreation of the Ghost of Tsushima trailers that we've seen, and obviously it kind of depicts more pre-epic war rather than spring. I guess maybe its timing of this was meant to be in springtime, but that's not what the actual scene kind of conveys in the emotion of the scenery itself. So in that respect, I don't feel like it's really worthy of being in the top 10 for this, but as an actual creation itself, it's really impressive. And it also featured in our Dreams recreation showcase, so definitely check that if you haven't already. We've still got more levels in the top 10. Next up we have Valley by Blual. This was a very fantasy-esque kind of vibe coming from them, but with the fantasy it still conveyed the springness just because of the different colors, the life. Obviously this fantasy kind of like hand mountain thing looked really kind of cool. Obviously the waterfall and all the different colors in like the plants on the mountain really helped bring out the whole springness vibe. My only sort of detraction from this sort of scene is that the mountains, the look doesn't seem all too impressive maybe anymore, because maybe I'm just getting used to seeing this quick way of doing the mountains in Dreams, and it's all becoming very samey and not as impressive as much anymore. And I guess it's not all 100% realistic feeling either, so there's a slight detraction there, but I feel like that might be more of a personal niggle. Relaxing Spring Tour by Re-Lycoris, and in this scene we go back to cherry blossoms It's very, very beautiful. I think they might have used like the same tree, but I really like the camera panning tour, going through this whole stream and looking at the trees, going up to the waterfall and going back towards the sunset. That was actually a very nice touch. The music was very fitting and it was very beautiful and tranquil as well. I would say the sort of level of detail wasn't quite as up there as some of the other entries, especially the water on the stream bit just didn't look quite right. Maybe there's not enough motion in there, or maybe the walls were like too straight. That's probably what put me off, but apart from that, it was very beautiful and a nice little scene there. Now we're on to the top 3, which are technically actually a top 4 because there was a joint 3rd position. So first up, we're going to look at Good Morning Eugene by Jaffakree. This level, I would say, rather than the scene, conveys a very nice spring vibe because, you know, you're going around picking up ingredients to make a soup. Soup maybe is not what you think about in spring, but actually, you know, picking up ingredients, gathering that, is very much a spring kind of thing for me at least, and I like the whole setting and the scenery does look very spring-like. It's just that my little complaint regarding it being a scene jam is that it's more of a full-on level rather than a scene. Otherwise, apart from that, it was a very enjoyable creation. Also equally in 3rd place is a Farmland Spring Sunset by RSlaven. This was a really, really great scenery. Another non-green take on springtime scenery. You know, it compensates for the lack of green, for having lots of trees in it as well. But obviously it's also conveying like the spring time where farmers sort of collect up hay with a nice sunset and landscape spreading out. That was very beautiful. I like all the little features like the little signpost and the cartwheel. That was also nice little additions. And a nice level of clouds as well in the sky. It's a very nice scene right there. In 2nd place, we have Forest/Swamp Scenery by Adrian14PL. I really love the detail and look of this level as well. I especially like that there was a sort of like, you know, an animal in the background sort of drinking from the stream, the swamp. That's also very nice. The lighting on the sun onto the water swamp was actually very nice. There's a few detail issues that I have with this scenery though, is obviously those 2 leaves, sprouts in the bottom right hand corner. Those really do not fit in with the scene to me. It just doesn't gel. They stand out so much. And also sort of, I guess, the leaves that are meant to be on top of the swamp, it doesn't look very natural at that particular point either. I really like the sort of the light tunnel that comes through the shrubberies and the little motions of the trees as well in the water. That looks very fabulous. And this is very much a darker side to spring, where sort of the animal drinking from the stream is what's bringing the springy vibe to counteract the lack of bright, obvious green. And finally in first place we have DISARMEDX's entry. It's just Sun. DISARMEDX has remixed his previous creation and just renamed it Sun. And like we said in our nature scenery showcase, this was a very, very beautiful level. I like the sparseness of the shrubbery on the rock. The sounds and the motion are very subtle and sparse, which increase the realism in it. And I like how things are, you know, dotted around. There's no sort of, it looks more natural and sort of rather than, you know, specifically done to make it look like nature. Well deserving first place in this contest. So those were the voted 10 top entries into the spring season's scenes community jam. There were still many more amazing entries that didn't quite make the top 10. Obviously there was loads of entries, and also the way the voting kind of works, it may have been that some of these levels that didn't quite make it just didn't get enough plays. I hope you let me know what you think about all the contest entries or which ones you liked in the comments below. So here are some of the other entries that I really like in this jam. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the other notable entries. I'm going to start off with looking at Sunset Blossom by Javip325. I really love this scene. It's a very nice calm parkland with an old man going for a stroll. It's really beautiful. I really like the sunset as well. One thing that I would have liked improved upon on this is to have the old man actually walking through rather than just have him stationary there. Next up, I'm going to have a look at Rainy Daze by Innocence48. Provided a really great spring vibe with both the good and the bad. You've got the sunlight coming in, really nice sun outside of this window, while at the same time you have, you know, springtime. There's still lots of rain coming along as well to give life, like that little plant as well. So this was a very great scene in my opinion, very much encapsulating spring. Maybe one of the only things that I didn't quite like about it was the level of detail of the curtains don't seem to match the rest of the scene. It sort of makes it seem like, but aside from that, a very nice scene. Another notable entry is Spring Bloom by Sesam66. And this was a very interesting entry actually. I really liked it because it showed a transition transition from the snow-covered area of a forest to going into spring, how the snow actually melts and how this plant life actually grows up and blooms. So that is actually really, really cool. This oozes the whole spring vibe in my opinion, with all that life bringing and being in the woods. And I liked how the camera panned through the woodland rather than just being one stationary scene. It actually helps bring a more sort of story or immersiveness to it, and I like those lots of life in this whole scene. Next is probably my favourite of the whole spring jam entries, and this was Bee and Flower by Hookline-dreamer. This would have been my first place choice. It's a very nice and simple scene of a bee coming up to a flower to collect pollen. This, to me, you can't get much more spring than that. Bee is very much a spring-like thing going up. Bees are everywhere in spring, helping bring more life to the world. And I just love the detail of both the flower and the bee as well. And there's great lighting. And the motions of the bee coming in as well, it just makes it feel so much better than just a still shot as well. So this would have been my first place choice, although it didn't even make the top 10, because it just encapsulates everything that I feel is great about spring. Next up we have Spring Diorama by hereticrick. I really love these diorama settings, as you might already be able to tell when I was going over one of the earlier entries. So this is very much a different kind of diorama. This is much more highly detailed, it's very beautiful, and the landscape is very cool inside that diorama box. And I find it really interesting how it sort of overflowed the box as well. You know, the water's rushing out, the tree actually is growing beyond the box confines, and it's always nice to see a slightly different angle, a different take on the expected theme. So obviously spring, you see the expected theme of the spring inside the box as well, but you're putting it in a setting that is not what you'd normally think of for spring. So this was a really great entry in my opinion. And finally we have Spring Sunset by Nico555. This was a very artistic angle to make this scene. I really like this whole sunset. The sun may have been too big actually for my opinion, but it looked very nice. Really like the motion of the tire swing on the tree and the vast green landscape. That was very good, and it really gives you a sense of going outside to go play out in the countryside because it's spring kind of thing. That's what I really like about this scene. There are many more actually notable entries in the CCJ. Definitely check them out yourselves. These are just my shortlist collections of the ones that I really loved. For a little bonus entry, there was a Happy Spring Seasonings by Mizzles2, the obvious humor entry of your seasoning, your spring, your metal spring. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to stay tuned to leftstickrightstick for more Dreams content. We have a Dreams community creation stream every fortnight on Thursdays, 7:30 PM GMT time. So definitely stay tuned. Click that bell button after subscribing to be notified when we come up with more videos.